Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
Oke. So, welcome everyone. Today, I want to share to you the ideas about a topic that I got before. But before we start, let me introduce myself first. So, my name is Nadzila Puji Wirantika, and my student number is 060-111-818-23015. And our topic today is bilingualism. So this is by Mileidis Gort from the Encyclopedia of Educational Psychology from the University of Kansas. So let's start. Before we start, I will give you some quotes. This is just simple quotes. Every people must have one language, of course. But for 2, 3, or more, can be done. We just try it. So this is quote by someone. Okay, just someone. So this is the table of contents of our discussion today. The first is that defining bilingualism. Second is the advantages of bilingualism. The third is the development of bilingualism. And then the last, I will give you the conclusion of this topic. Next, before we start, you see this term, before we go to the term bilingualism, what is bilingual? I want to ask you guys. I want to ask your idea about what is bilingual. Maybe one of you wanna answer this question? In your opinion, what is bilingual? What is pop in your mind when you hear the word bilingual? Maybe one of you wanna share something? Yes.
I think what in my mind when I heard about bilingual is the ability to talk in a multiple language.
Okay. Any other idea? Fitri, Zahra, there is no. No? Okay, so actually what Yusuf already said is right. Bilingual is the ability, or more specifically is the ability of someone to do or to speak two different languages fluently. So balance both language, and this is will become the next issues in bilingualism about fluence. Right, we go to the very first discussion, that is defining bilingualism. So the bilingualism actually or generally can be called like bilingual when you can master two different languages fluently. But the term of bilingualism has become broadened as the research see from the reality in society that this is not just the person who can speak two different languages. It is when they use the language, they will use that language in a different context, in a different purpose, with different person and with different level of proficiency. Maybe for the example, you can master Mandarin and English, but the Mandarin one, you are in advanced level, but English one, maybe you in intermediate level, things like that. So this is what I said become the issues and kind of difficult to actually define or set someone is bilingual or not, because every people has their own perspective on fluent, right? So we can say like this: if I can master English and then I can master Bahasa Indonesia, of course, as my first language, my Indonesian language will dominate the other, because the English language is my second language, and from my own opinion also, my English is not as good as my Indonesian language. But this is the case. Is it can be called a bilingual because these two a language isn't balance in the fluency, or it is can be called a bilingual because actually you understand the language and you can talk the language but not um, on the same level, because bilingual actually mean the functions of two language is in a conversation and interaction. So whether or not we use the language in the conversation or not, and whether or not it is called bilingual or not when you use it in interaction or you just have it in your brain like a knowledge. So this is, you use it or not, can be called a bilingualism or not if you use the language or not. So defining a bilingualism, once again I said that still a debate, or still kind of confusing, because this what concept of bilingualism, that before actually bilingualism just defined as a mastering two languages, but because the broadening of this concept, this kind of difficult to see if someone is actually bilingual or not. The researcher just make it difficult by themselves. Eh? All right, so we're going, or we move to the part of the defining bilingualism, that is describing individual bilingualism. So this is based on William Mackey uh, opinion said about describing someone bilingualism based on these four aspects. The first is degree. So actually how to know someone is bilingual or not is to see the degree or how well the person speak the two languages. And then the second is the function. So uh, someone use a language usually as a function to do something, and then this function can affect the degree of the proficiency, the level of the proficiency, like how well we can speak that language. For the external function, it is like in the school, maybe in the course, or everywhere you interact with people. And internal, it is like when you are have a dream. Maybe you have some bilingual people that I have heard before sometimes have a dream into different language or many language that they master. Or when you take a notes, sometimes that is the function of the function of the bilingualism of someone has, they use it for. And then the third is alternation, and this is related to the code switching. We ever heard about this term before in our class in social linguistics? Code switching is like someone who actually bilingual and change some of the words in the sentence to actually fit the conversation with the person who he or she talked to. And when someone use this when someone actually can use this well, maybe it can consider that uh, he has or she has a good master of the fluency of two different languages when someone can do a code switching very well. And then the fourth is cross-linguistic influence. So this is what we learned in the second language acquisition class, that actually uh, how first language or one language influence another language. It is considered negative because uh, the different form of two different language may be, for example, like very different, like Chinese and English. The word is already different, right? And also maybe another problem with different languages, that is the cross linguistics influence. Now let's move on to the problems of bilingualism. This is actually one of the all right now. So Problems of the bilingualism actually, the first is problematic with young bilingual. Maybe for a youngsters like teenagers have a problem, like they are naughty, they are make a problem in the public or in the class and like that. So people, what insight of a bilingual is really bad because of this young problematic people. And then the second is immigrant. So when some people, immigrant people, go abroad to someone's country, to other people's country, they will actually adapt the the culture and then the language of that country. But the problem is that they feel like maybe they will lose their own identity, their native language, and then their native culture. So that is why actually the problems of bilingualism, it is like from what I notes in this red little one in the downs. This is in the in the point of view of monolingualism. So this is the people who speak one languages see how bilingualism is have a problem. So this is the insight of the monolingualism. Next up, we are going to the advantages of bilingualism. The first is that communicative. Okay, so the advantages of bilingualism, the first is communicative, has some branches in the down. That the first is parental relationship, of course, because usually a bilingual child, a bilingual person is influenced or uh, construct, developed by the parents who actually speak two different languages. So, for example, maybe the mom can speak English and the father can speak Japanese, things like that. So the child grow up to speak two different languages, and it can make the relationship between the children and each of the parents become much closer because they use the different language. Maybe the child will use Japanese with the father and use Indonesian with the mother, things like that. And then the second is extended family relationship. So uh, if you have a not far family in another country that speak different language, the child or the person who actually bilingual can be the bridge or to connect these two family. And then the third is community relationship, of course. If you are in a large community outside of your school, of your house, you will have advantages because you can speak different languages. And then the fourth is transitional communication. This is when you go abroad to another country, maybe for example Korean, that you can speak English but you cannot speak Korean. But because you can do this English and someone maybe in the Korean also can speak English, so you can communicate with them without even know their native language. And then the last is language sensitivity. So a bilingual person actually kind of sensitive with how they have to use their language and which language they have to what kind of situation. So they are tend to be more sensitive in terms of language and the situation. Second is cultural. So bicultural experience, of course, because language is very related to the culture. So when someone masters one language, they can also know the culture or experience the culture of that language. And then economic employment opportunities. And nowadays, someone who actually know English, actually, especially we know in Indonesia, English is already become one of the what famous thing to that you have master. If you wanna go to some uh, if you wanna go to a big company, so if you're bilingual, you are in a good opportunity. And then cognitive. So if you are bilingual, you tend to be creative thinking, greater sensitivity in communication, like what I said before, and then language awareness, fluency, flexibility, and elaboration in thinking. So someone who is bilingual tend to, I'm not going to say smarter than monolingual, but they have a way of the way of their thinking is different. It is much broad than the monolingual, maybe we can say. And then the next one is the development of bilingualism. So the first is there are two kinds. The first is simultaneous bilingualism, and the second is sequential bilingualism. So simultaneous bilingualism, it is when someone or a child grew up uh, with uh, two different languages, and then they are interact with the language with the parents actively. So maybe if you see a child who actually can speak English since a very young age, and they can also speak Indonesia, that maybe because in the house the parents make them usual to both languages. And then sequential bilingualism has two things. Uh, that is adult second language acquisition, and then childhood sequential bilingualism. So childhood sequential bilingualism actually the same as simultaneous bilingualism, because child can explore the language not just in the house but also maybe in the environment who has different language. Maybe for the immigrants, someone from Chinese who go to America, in the house they use Chinese, but in the school the child use English to interact with the friends. For adult second language acquisition, it is more maybe formal because they learn the language maybe in the school like us. We are maybe one of it. And then uh, what the difference is that adult second language acquisition has some uh, research has some point of view that the first is uh, someone who learn another language in the adult age maybe will have problems with pronunciation rather than young. But someone said that is not a problem of the age. So those are two different arguments. So okay, guys, I think that's all my explanation about bilingualism. If you have any question.
Okay, Nazila, I have a question.
Mhm.
Uh, so, is it useful for students to apply two languages at school? And is there a bad effect from students who like to converse with two languages?
Can
Thank
you
you.
repeat the first question, Zara?
Oh, is it useful for students to apply two languages at school?
Mhm.
And is there a bad effect from students who like to converse with two languages?
Okay, maybe in my opinion, it is useful for to make them practice their language. Maybe for someone who actually just learn language in the school, it is good for them to practice this language. Maybe for another, for after they graduate or in the society, they will find some opportunity that lead that makes them or force them to have this another language. So before they have to do that, they already know back then in the school. But if you are already a bilingual since in the house, actually, in the school you are just applied because in the house you already use it also. And then is there any bad impact? Uh, Actually, maybe the bad impact just from the people around you, from the society. Nowadays, when you speak English, especially if you are so fluent with a good pronunciation and actively with someone in the environment that actually not familiar with that, people will, you know, you know, you know what I mean, right? So people will just roll their eyes or think like, "What is this people? What is this person? Just go to America," something like that. And then, I mean, that is maybe the bad impact is just a comment from the society. But if the society also like maybe in our major we are English, so when we use English, that is just fine. No one will uh, give a bad comment to you because we are in the environment of using that. I think that is only that, in my
Okay,
opinion.
thank you so much,
Okay, Zahra.
Nadzila.
Thank you for the question. Another?
Uh, Nazila,
Yes,
I want to
Fitri.
ask with you. Um, what do you think is the best advantages of bilingualism? The best advantages. What do you think?
The best advantages. Okay. So between the communicative, cultural, and cognitive. Okay, if you ask my opinion, let me think. I think all the advantages is good. Communicative, cultural, and cognitive. But maybe it is the maybe the that is a reason this person who do the research take the communicative in the first uh, role, because that I think that is the most what the most real advantage is communicative, because we are interact with people, uh, and one of the way we interact with the people that use language. So yeah, when you can master many language, you can communicate well with other people, with many people from any other country, so you don't have any barrier with someone. So I think communicative advantages is what the most advantageful one, because cultural and cognitive will follow it if you can communicate well. Did I answer your question, Fitri?
Okay, thank you, Nazila.
Okay. Another?
Zara, I want to ask question.
Yes.
Yes. Nah. So my question is simple, but I want to reminisce in the idea of the bilingual. You mentioned before that the bilingual is the ability of someone that using two or more languages fluently. I want to ask about your opinion about someone that use that switch between languages, not because he is fluent, but because he want to look cool. Like for someone, like uh, when someone which is which is like someone that using English as a trend for them. I want to know your opinion for that.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So I think it needs more deep down research also to the person. We know maybe when we know someone use that language just for look cool in front of other people, just use some literally witches and things like that, but we know that actually she or he is not a bilingual. uh, I think it cannot be said that it is uh, bilingual, because you just put some words into your sentence, and yeah, I think that is not a bilingual in my opinion. But if it is, you do add some words in your sentence because actually you want to look cool, and then you are actually really a bilingual or you're fluent with that language, you can be considered as a bilingualism. But if it is just like put some words like which is literally you, I, yes, no, things like that, I think that is not a bilingual. You just know the words of the language.
Oh,
What do you think, Yusuf?
so,
And also,
so no. Continue.
and also like what I said before, bilingualism is not really necessary. It's kind of difficult to define a bilingual if a person is bilingual or not, because the level of the language proficiency sometimes different with another language. So that's why. But if it is just one or two words, I think that's not a bilingual. Maybe like us,
Yeah.
maybe we can call ourselves as a bilingual because we can communicate even not so well.
So you mean that what they did is not a bilingual? Is
No,
that correct?
yes, I think that is not a bilingual. It's just like following a trend.
Mm, okay, okay. I think I got your point. Thank you, Nadzila, for your answer.
Okay, thank you, Yusuf, for that question. And is there any other
No, I think.
additional? Oh, no? Okay. So I will give you my conclusion, guys. So bilingualism have a role in the economic development by the easier international communication, like what I mentioned before, through a social context, psychological, cultural, linguistic factors and processes, and many people doing research about how someone being a bilingualism. However, it is not clear yet, like what I mentioned before. And bilingualism being learned as is a natural and dynamic phenomenon that in the future will still have the attention mainly from the researchers. So actually bilingual is the person and bilingualism is the phenomenon of the bilingual person. So I think that's all that I can share to you today, guys, and I'm sorry if I have some mistake, too fast or too slow, or you maybe not really like with my answers. I'm sorry, and thank you for your attention. See you next time, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Assalamualaikum
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank